Okay, let's start again on 16b, towards the bottom, where the Gemara is talking about the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Hakol shochtim, everybody can shecht, u'l'olam shochtim, and forever we shecht. So the Gemara says, what's that to include? Hakol shochtim, everybody can shecht. That to say, suggests the Gemara, that hakol b'shchita, all items need to be shechted. Afilu of, even a bird. Even though the Torah doesn't say explicitly that a bird needs to be slaughtered, a bird also needs to be slaughtered to be eaten. La'olam shochtim, what does it mean? We always shecht. So man Tana, who's the Tana of this? Amar Abba, Rabba says, Rabbi Yishmael. This is the view of Rabbi Yishmael. The Tanya learned in a Braisa. The Torah says, Ki archiv Hashem elokeches k'vulcha kasher dibar lach. When Hashem will increase your inheritance as He's promised, v'amartoch lavasar, and you're going to say, let me eat meat, because you're going to want to eat meat. Wherever you want to eat meat, you can eat meat. Rabbi Yishmael explains this pasuk to mean the following: this pasuk is coming only to permit meat that they want. According to Rabbi Yishmael, when we were in the desert and we had the Mishkan, you were not allowed to eat meat. You were allowed to bring a karban shlamim, and then as part of the karban shlamim, you could eat the meat that day and that night, but you were not allowed to just slaughter an animal to eat meat. To slaughter an animal to eat meat was a chiyuv karet. It was a big avera.
They had them on, Rabbi?
They had animals, but because they were offering karbanot, but they were not allowed to eat the animals. So they could only eat the man, because they couldn't eat the animals. They were not allowed to eat the animals. And then, once they entered the land, hutulam b'sar taiva. This pasuk is permitting to the Jews to eat meat just because they want it. Now, now that the Jews have gone into exile, maybe we should go back to the prohibition that existed in the days of the desert. And maybe now we are not allowed to eat meat. That's why we have our Mishnah. Forever you shecht. Even when you don't have a Beit HaMikdash, you can still be shechting and eating chulin. Rav Yosef challenged this. So if the point here is about eating, so why does the Mishnah focus on the shochtin? The Mishnah says forever we are shochet. What do you mean? It should be la'olam shochtim v'ochel. It should be forever we are shochet and eating. You can always keep shechting and eating. Furthermore, meikara my time itzer. Why originally in the desert were we not allowed to eat meat? We can only eat shlamim. Because we were right next to the Mishkan. That's where we all lived. So Hashem said, you want meat? Make a carbon out of it. My time history. So why, when we entered the land of Israel, were we then allowed to eat meat? Because we were far from the Mishkan. It wasn't so possible that whenever we want meat to go bring a carbon. People lived in Tzfat, people lived in Eilat, people lived in Alexandria. They couldn't always run over to the land to Yerushalayim. So if so, now starting today's daf, the Kol Shkein Hashta, so certainly now, we're much further away. We're living in America. I want to have meat. I have to go jump on a plane to go to Yerushalayim, go to Har HaBayit. It's not possible. Rav Yosef said, no, that's not the pshat in our Mishnah. When our Mishnah says, La'olam shochtim, forever we can shecht, it's not to say forever, meaning even after we leave Israel, we can still be shechting because we can still be eating meat. That's not the Mishnah. That's the view of Rabbi Yishmael. No, the Mishnah is the view of Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva is a different view. According to Rabbi Yishmael, when we were in the desert, we were not allowed to eat meat. We were chulin, we could only eat meat of a karban. According to Rabbi Akiva, in the desert, there was no law of shchita. So how would they eat animals? They could eat animals. They didn't need to slaughter them in the normal way. What they would do is they would just go to the nostrils of the animal and put a knife there and slide the knife from the nostrils down to the chest. Nechira. They would just kill the animal. They could just kill the animal. There was no law of nevela. Nevela started once we entered the land of Israel. The Tanakh in a Braisa, the verse says, when a place will be far from you, that Hashem, your God's going to place His name there. And then you are to slaughter from your cattle and from your sheep. Rabbi Akiva explains, what is the verse telling you? This pasuk is saying, once you enter the land, you can no longer eat the meat of an animal that wasn't slaughtered, but rather you just slit the head down to the chest. Initially, when we were in the desert, There was no prohibition against Besar Nechira. In the desert, we did not need Shchita to eat meat. We could do Nechira to eat meat. However, once we entered the land, then the meat that wasn't slaughtered became prohibited. So, now that we've gone into exile, we've lost the temple, you might think, okay, so now that we're again out of the temple, we're out of Israel, let's go back to the way it was in the desert. We should no longer have a need to do shchita. That's what the Mishnah is saying, the olam shochtin. Forever we do shchita. Even after we've left the land of Israel, we still need to do shchita to eat meat. We can't eat meat through nechira. We can't eat meat just by killing the animal. We can only eat meat if the animal was killed in this particular way. Shchita, the two pipes being slit by a sharp knife sliding across them in a back and forth motion. So, the bottom line is, what are we doing with our Mishnah? The Mishnah said, L'olam shochtim, forever they shecht. So what does that mean? Two possibilities. Either L'olam shochtim, forever they shecht, as in they now that we've entered Israel, we can still shecht, and we don't say that no shchita at all, because according to Rabbi Yishmael in the desert, there was a law of no shchita at all. You couldn't shecht animals. You could only have korbanos, but you couldn't shecht animals of chulin that weren't holy. That's either that, or the Mishnah, when it says L'olam shochtin, is saying like Rabbi Akiva. According to Rabbi Akiva, in the desert, there was no need for shchita. You could eat meat from an animal that was just killed. The law of shchita only started with entering into Eretz Yisrael. And it's saying L'olam shochtin, forever we shecht. Once we've been in Eretz Yisrael, even though we're out, we still have that law that the shchita is required, and we cannot eat besar nechira. We cannot eat meat that from an animal that was just killed. Yeah, question?
No.
Yeah, please.
But shchita was given to Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah, well, they needed those halachos for the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, those were the halachos of shchita, but chulin animals, according to Rabbi Akiva, did not need to be killed through shchita. They could have been killed even through nechira, even through just slitting the animal from the head to the chest. Yeah, question. Geva.
It's more of a comment.
Great.
When you think about what happened in the desert,
Yeah.
Rabbi Ishmael makes more sense, but the Rambam rules Rabbi Akiva because they complained that they didn't have enough meat. Like they wanted to eat meat
Right.
all the time. I guess they were tired of having to eat
Korbanos.
korban.
That's right.
So God just gave them birds.
Exactly.
Because you can,
Yes.
well,
That makes more sense.
That actually adds up with Rabbi
Right.
Ishmael.
That's right.
Well,
That's what Greg got said. The slab of quail. Exactly. It makes more sense for
Rabbi,
sure.
is there no like pasuk that says you have to shchita? Is it like a kibbutz Moshe Sinai? Like I'm saying, the idea of chulim in general, like you have to shecht it.
No, this pasuk is saying it.
And he's saying it only applies to Eretz Yisrael.
Because the Torah says that, right? If you look in the Torah or where they have the whole pasuk, when the place that Hashem's going to choose to place His name there, namely the Beis Hamikdash, will be far from you, v'zavachta v'bekarcha mitzonecha, and you shall slaughter. V'zavachta, zricha is slaughtering. You shall slaughter from your cattle, from your sheep, Hashem asan Hashem l'cha, kasher tzivisicha, as Hashem gave you, as I've commanded you. And you'll eat in your gates, however you want to. So, the simple meaning of the pasuk is when you're far from the Beis Hamikdash, you are to slaughter the same way I've commanded you about karbanos. Then you are to slaughter chulin. It's not carbon; you're eating it in your gate. So, okay. So now the Gemara says, "But my committee, what's the argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael all about?" Rabbi Akiva Sava, Rabbi Akiva holds B'sar taiva lo itzer klal. There never was a situation where you couldn't eat chulin. There was never a situation where there was a prohibition against regular meat and you could only eat meat of a carbon. There never was such a thing. So even before we were in the land of Israel, even in the desert, we could eat chulin. And Rabbi Yishmael Sava, Rabbi Yishmael holds b'sar nachira lo ishtri klal. There never was a situation where you didn't need to do shchita. That in the desert you could do nachira and the animal would be allowed just because you killed it. Bishmal Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, I understand according to Rabbi Yishmael. I didn't see if we understand the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'shachar es ben abakar lifnei Hashem." He used to slaughter the cattle before Hashem. Elamai el Rabbi Akiva mai v'shachar. But according to Rabbi Akiva, you don't need to do shchita when you're in the desert. So why in the desert did the Torah say "V'shachar es ben abakar"? So Gemara says, no, even according to Rabbi Akiva that there was no need for shchita in the desert, kachim shiny, but karbanos did need shchita. It was chulin that didn't need shchita. But kachim, a karban, v'shachar ben a makar, that needed to have a shchita. Another proof. Bishmal or Rabbi Yishmael, I can understand according to Rabbi Yishmael, I didn't say that to the pasuk says, with the pasuk that Gava just quoted, Moshe Rabbeinu complains about the Jews who are asking for quail. He says, "Atzon v'akar yishachet lahem." If sheep and cattle are slaughtered for them, is that going to be enough for them? They're just going to find something else to complain about. So you see, he talks about slaughtering sheep and cattle. But according to Rabbi Akiva, there's no need in the desert to slaughter sheep and cattle. According to Rabbi Akiva, you can eat the meat of sheep and cattle in the desert, even if they were just killed some other way, with the nechira. El Rabbi Akiva, so according to Rabbi Akiva, Maya tzon v'abakar yishachet lahem. It should say if sheep and cattle get killed, not sheep and cattle get slaughtered. So the Gemara says you're right. When it says slaughtered, it means killed. Nechira shalem zui shchitasa. When the Torah calls shchita, it doesn't really mean shchita. It means nechira. It means that the animal slit from the head down to the chest, according to Rabbi Akiva, because in the desert there was no need for shchita. Shchita only began Shchita of Chullin only began once we entered Eretz Yisrael in the pasuk V'zavachta. Bishmal Rabbi Yishmael, I can understand according to Rabbi Yishmael, and Ditnanat we have in a Mishnah, Hashochet, if somebody slaughters a wild animal, let's say a deer, V'nisnavla biyado, and it became an avela, it wasn't done right, the pipe was pulled out, whatever, it became an avela. Or hanocher, somebody who is slashing the animal from its nostrils down to its chest, nechira. Or hama'aker, or if someone uproots the pipes, so then, even though it's the blood of a chaya, patim lachasos, he's exempt from the mitzvah of covering the blood. There is a mitzvah that the blood of a chaya and the blood of a bird, when slaughtered, that blood, there's a mitzvah to cover it, called kisui hadam, the mitzvah of covering the blood with dust. It only applies to a chaya and an oaf, it doesn't apply to a behema, to a domesticated animal. So here it says, if the chaya was not shechted, the chaya was turned into a nevela, there is no mitzvah of kisui hadam. So okay, according to Rabbi Yishmael, that's fine. Fine, all right. Shechita requires kisui hadam. But according to Rabbi Akiva, my patum l'chasos. Why in the case of nechira, in the case of slashing it from the nostrils down to the chest, is there no need to cover the blood? Understand, in the desert, when they were eating chulin, how did they kill the chulin? Nechira. So in the desert, they were covering the blood. So itzer. So once it was prohibited, and once there was a mandate to cover the blood through an act of nechira in the desert, shouldn't that continue once we enter the land of Israel? So the Gemara answer, right, am I patum al-chasas, why were they exempt? So my answer is no. Itzer. Since there was a prohibition of doing nechira once we entered the land of Israel, once there's a prohibition, it's no longer considered an act of shchita. Since it's no longer considered an act of shchita, it's not going to make the animal kosher. Therefore, there's now no longer a need to cover it. In the desert, yes. In the desert, when nechira was the way to prepare the meat, you're right. If there was nechira done on a chay, on a wild animal, of course that blood would have had to be covered. But now that we entered the land of Israel, the itzer, and now nechira became prohibited, it's now fully prohibited, and there's no need to cover the blood of an animal that's killed through nechira. Additionally, Rabbi Akiva, I can understand according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that even in the desert they were allowed to eat meat. There was no prohibition of meat. They only have to eat from karbanos. So according to him, I understand. That's what the pasuk says. Kasher yachel esatzi v'esayal kein tochlenu atamei v'atahor yachtav yochlenu. The pasuk says, but the way the deer is eaten and the antelope is eaten, so too you will eat it, right? And so basically it's saying that deer and antelope were eaten in the desert, and they will, and the way they were eaten, you'll be able to eat chulin when you enter the land of Israel. Now, 1 second, deer and antelope can't be a carbon. So clearly, if they were eaten in the desert, you see that chulin were eaten in the desert.
Rabbi, you used the word wild animal. They were wild in the desert, or they were not kosher animals?
Well, wild animals just means an animal that's not normally raised next to people.
So
not a sheep.
Non-domesticated.
Non-domesticated, yeah.
So that's why, but the actual animals, they were kosher animals. You know.
Yeah, a deer is a kosher animal. Yeah.
Okay.
So Hel Rabbi Yishmael, but according to Rabbi Yishmael, Tzvi va'ayel gufei mi'avashari. Did Hashem even allow them to eat deer in the desert? Could it be a carbon? Answer the Gemara, yes. Kiyas Rachmana behema. When does Hashem say that in the desert the Jews can't eat chulin? That's of a domesticated animal, the chazil akrava, because it could be brought as a carbon. So since it could be brought as a carbon, according to Rabbi Yishmael, it had to be brought as a carbon. Otherwise, it couldn't be eaten. You can only eat from it when you're eating from a carbon. Avol chaya, but a non-domesticated animal like a deer, the lo chazil akrava, it's not something which could be brought. Then lo asa rachmana, Hashem didn't prohibit eating meat from it. Okay, so that really completes sort of the ground rules that we have this argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. So now by Rabbi Yirmiyah had the following question. According to Rabbi Akiva, that in the desert they did not have shechita. They had nechira. They used to just slash the animal from the nostrils down to the chest, and that's what would make the animal edible. So what happens if somebody shechted an animal? He was nocher. He was nocher the animal in the desert, and then he entered Eretz Yisrael with the other Jews. Could he eat the animal pieces? So by Rabbi Yirmiyah, evare, the limbs of basar nechira, of meat that had been killed through nechira, sheichnisu Yisrael limayim la'aretz, that the Jews brought with them into Eretz Yisrael. Mahu, what is the halacha? Are they allowed to eat those pieces? So Gemara says, Ema, so when is this? The first 7 years, right, when they come in. So of course they could eat it. They were even allowed to eat non-kosher during those 7 years. They could eat pig. They could certainly eat pieces that they brought with them from the desert. How do we know? Because the pasuk says, when you're going to come into the land, you're going to have houses filled with all sorts of good that you didn't fill it up. Other people filled it up. Boros chatzuvim, wells, asher lo chatzat, that you didn't dig. Kramim v'zeitim, vineyards and olive orchards, asher lo natat, that you didn't plant. V'achal v'savat, you'll eat and you'll be full. Rabbi Yirmiyah explained, by Abba, the son of Abba, the name of Rav, when they entered into the land of Israel, katli de chaziri, they were allowed to even eat, what part of the pork is this? Katli de chaziri.
In Hebrew, it probably means the
What's it? The katli de chaziri?
Chazir usually means, in translation, just means pork. But
just pork.
in modern Hebrew, I don't know what it means.
I don't know. Here it says, in the Masifta Gemara, it says dried meat of pork. Or some, I guess some type of I don't know, bologna or, right, some type of preserved meats, very salted meats. Some of that was good. So if they could, eat pork jerky, the sign of Hiramibaya, could they eat the meat that they were bringing with them from the desert when it was, in fact, that meat was put to death in a way that in the desert was the right way? Ella, so we're talking about la'achamikan. Okay, we're talking about pieces of meat. It must have been miracle meat, right? It's lasting more than 7 years. It's miracle meat that they were nocher in the desert, and now it's after the 7 years of conquering the land.
Why would they be permitted to eat pig? I don't understand.
Special permission that Hashem permitted.
Where does it come from?
This pasuk, because they were in battle. Hashem says you're going to go in. You don't have to worry about food. Whatever they prepared, you can eat.
So is that the case now also?
There are leniencies during the war. Yeah, there are leniencies.
But only the soldiers, right?
Yeah. But they were all soldiers. I can tell you, we are talking about the 7 years that they were conquering. And that's the question. And still, maybe what was permitted to them was the stuff that they conquer from the local inhabitants who were worshipping idols. But to bring their own meat from the desert, maybe once they enter the land, no, the meat from the desert's no good, because now they need to do shechita. Maybe their own meat is not permitted. So the answer is taken. We don't know the answer to this question. We don't know. We don't know if they could take leftovers of nechira from the desert and eat it in Eretz Yisrael.
My uncle ate 2 years of yogurt in the army in Iran.
Because he was carefully kosher.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, the Chafetz Chaim wrote a whole sefer for the soldiers called Machne Yisrael because of the challenges of being in the army. I remember one of the things that he writes is that during Pesach he permits the Ashkenazic soldiers to eat kitnios because it's so hard. They had so few kosher food. All right, Amar Rabba. This is in the Polish army.
I was hoping for bacon.
Right.
Hoping for something more. Some corn. So Amar Rabba said, Shenis, I can give you, okay, Shanisa, you explained, Hakol Shochtim. What does it mean, Hakol Shochtim? It means everything needs to get shechted, even a bird. La'olam Shochtim, you also explain what La'olam Shochtim means. It means that even after we enter the land of Israel, after we leave Israel, still we're shechting. That's what Yakiva, or it means Hakol Shochtim, that that once we enter the land, everything gets shechted, and even Chulin gets shechted, and that continues. Okay, so those are the two explanations of either the phrase, for the phrase Hakol Shochtim, then we saw the explanation of La'olam Shochtim, or Hakol Shochtim and La'olam Shochtim. So now, what about the third phrase in the Mishnah? Bakol Shochtim. With everything you shecht, my mashnaslei, what does that to include? What's that teaching? L'chitim, if you can tell me the Mishnah is saying like this, Bein Bitzor, Bein Beschuchas, Bein Bekrum Shel, that the Mishnah is saying you can shecht with anything, either a sharp flint, or a piece of glass, or the edge of a reed. Hadumi Dahanach Katani, but Bakol Shochtim is together with Hakol Shochtim and La'olam Shochtim. So, it should be something similar to the other two. So, Ihanach B'Shochtim. So, if we're saying from Hakol Shochtim La'olam Shochtim, Hainami B'Shochtim, there should also be a law about the people doing the Shechita. Ihanach, if these two, Hakol Shochtim and La'olam Shochtim, has been a Shchatim, they're talking about what gets slaughtered. Hainami B'N Shchatim, then Bakol Shochtim should also be about what gets slaughtered. Elam Rava, so therefore Rava said, Hakol Shochtim, when it says Hakol Shochtim, Chada Lasuye Kuti. When it says Hakol Shochtim, it's not what we said. Right? Hakol Shochtim we said was to include birds. No. Hakol Shochtim means everybody can shecht, even a Kuti can shecht. Because as we've learned, Kutim do care about mitzvos of the Torah. They just don't care about messing us up. So if the Kuti shechts and he eats from it, then you can eat from him.
You don't have to supervise him?
No.
He eats from it.
As long as he eats from it.
Today more. That's
Right. V'chada, the other line of, let's say,
Today we consider them going, right?
yes.
By the way, about the kuti, I read yesterday.
Yeah,
They have
please.
a website called shomronim.com.
All right.
I'm not kidding you. They do the shchita and they direct the head of the animal to the hard grazing.
Nice.
I mean, they just say here that they dive into hard grazing, but they actually do their shchita towards hard grazing.
All shkita.
Which tells you that they have a gazara for sure.
Interesting. V'chadza, another phrase in this Mishnah is La'asuye Yisrael Mumar. To say that a Jew who's not careful with kashrus, he eats treif because it's more delicious to him or it's cheaper. He also can shecht if you check the knife and give it to him. And La'olam Shochtim, this it says that we always shecht. That means bein bayom bein balayla, you shecht by day or by night as long as you have a big torch. Bein barosh hagag, you can shecht on the top of a roof, or bein barosh hasfina, you can even check on the top of a boat. And then when it says bakol shochtin, and you can shecht with everything, that's to say bein bitzor, bein beschuchas, bein mekumish, either with a flint, or even with a piece of glass, or even with the edge of a reed. So it's all talking about the act of shchita. Who can do it, the act of shchita? Where do you do, and when do you do the act of shchita? And finally, with what do you do the act of shchita? Yeah, David, you had a question?
No, they said the Kutim keep the Torah, right?
Yes.
The Torah foundation is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So how do you say something?
Because they only take things in a very literal way. So V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is, I have to love him, I have to give him charity, I have to visit him when he's sick, I have to comfort the mourner, but not that I can't mess him up by giving him some aveira to eat. That they didn't keep. Okay, the Mishnah says there's certain things that you shouldn't use for shchita, certain knives. Puts me magal katsir, the knife that's used to cut the harvest. V'ha megeira. Megeira is a saw. Okay, so now the Gemara has a whole discussion of what type of flaws in knives would mess up the knife. So a story, Avua de Shmuel, the father of Shmuel, Pagam v'shadar. He wanted to learn what type of a flaw in a knife, what type of a nick, what type of a little crack in the knife would mess up the shechita. So he took knives and he made a nick in this one over here and a nick in that one over there, and he sent it to the rabbis in Israel to ask, is this kosher? Is this knife kosher? Is that knife kosher? So they said back to him like this, Kimagera Shaninu. We learned in the Mishnah that if the knife is like a saw, that is no good. So in other words, a knife like a saw has two, it goes like this. It's serrated. It's like a V, a V shape. So when you have two sort of nicks there, this way and that way, then it is a problem. Tana Rabbanan went in a brisa.
That's a good knife for the Arabs, Rabbi.
We learned in a brisa on Daf Yud Zayin. Listen, what we need is what the Torah says, that all the residents of the land have to be removed from the land, and the land is only for the Jewish people. That's what the Torah said. The Torah said explicitly the land is only for the Jews. The people who want to stay, who aren't Jewish, they can stay if they become Gerei Toshav. So Ger Toshav, as we've learned, has to accept on himself all the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach. One of them is Lo Tirtzach, don't kill. If they want to be Gerei Toshav and loyal to God, that's fine. But otherwise, they're not allowed to be in the land of Israel. That's the Torah system. Sakin sheyesh ba Tana Rabbanan went in a brisa. Sakin sheyesh ba pegimos harbe, a knife that has lots of nicks. Tidon kimagera, so that gets judged as a saw, and it's no good. She'ein ba'ela pegima achas, but if it only has a single nick, so it depends. If it's a knife which is ogeres, then it's psula. If it's a knife which is misuchseches, it's kshera. Heichidami ogeres, heichidami misuchseches. What's the difference between ogeres and misuchseches? Amr Belezer explained. Ogeres means mishtei ruchos. Ogeres is where you have a nick on two sides. I have here a very nice picture. I wonder if you guys have a nice picture too. So you have both here and here. So as the knife is sliding across the neck, it's going to get caught. The neck gets caught inside, gets caught trying to go out, gets caught twice. So that is ogeres. Misuchseches is meruach achas. Misuchseches means there's only on one side a nick, but on the other side there isn't. The other side is nice and sharp, so the neck is not going to get stuck in it. No, that is okay. Misuchseches could work. So the Gemara says, Maishna, why? Maishna mishtei ruchos, why is it if you have a nick on two sides? Demur shakama machlish, the first indentation is going to, weaken the skin. And then Umur shabasra bazan, and the second indentation is going to tear it. Still, meruach achas nami, even if you only have a nick on one side, as Baruch was asking, churfa de sakina machlish, the sharpness of the knife on the skin is going to weaken it. And then when it gets to the indentation, mur shabaza, that indentation, that crack is going to tear it. So my answer is Bekayim Aresha de Sakina. We're talking about where this crack is at the very top of the knife. So in other words, the first thing that happens is that the knife, sort of the skin is in the indentation, and then it's on the sharp part. So when it's in the indentation, it hasn't been softened up yet. It's not going to tear. And the sharp part is going to slit it. But the sharp part slitting it, at that point, it's a regular sharp knife. It's okay. So the Gemara said, no, it's not okay. Sof, but still. Ki azla machlasha, right? You have to do two motions. You bring the knife this way, and you bring it back the other way. So 1 second, when you bring it out this way, so the first time it got weakened, ki also when you bring it back, buzz, it's going to now tear. So the Gemara says, no, we're talking about where it was a very long knife, and as we've learned, a very long knife, there is no need to go back and forth. You're going shaholech v'lo hevi. He brought it back this way and he didn't bring it back.
You're saying the nick is by the handle or by the tip?
By the beginning of where the knife touches.
So by the tip of the knife or the handle?
I guess.
No, Rabbi, they start from the handle part.
No, I
Go
got that.
like
I just wasn't sure if
that.
you were
Oh, so
talking
maybe it's
about-
by the handle then. Maybe it's by the handle.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
Starts by the handle.
handle,
Yeah, it
and
starts by the
then
handle.
when it gets too notch, they stop and they go back one more time.
Isn't either way, as
But
long as
already
you-
when it hits the notch, hits it, I think
But
it's
if it's a
already
long knife,
finito
it
la
should be by-
musica.
it should
The
be
animal
by
is
hand
dead.
then,
It
right?
doesn't feel anymore.
What is 2 ways? I thought Shrita was one smooth.
No.
Ah.
Well,
As
it
long as you
depends how
avoid
big the
tip.
knife is. If it's a small knife, it's this
Avoid
and
the tip.
this. If it's a long knife, it's this
Just one
one
slide.
smooth because it's got to sort of slide it. It has to slide against it twice. So if it's a long knife, it slides against it, and then again it slides against it because it's a very long knife. Okay, Amar Rava said, Shalosh midos besakin. 3 different laws about a knife. Ogeres, a knife that sort of collects the meat inside of it. Lo yishchot, so that has a single notch. You shouldn't shecht with it. V'im shachat, but if you did, shchita so kshira. The shchita is kosher. A knife that is misuchseches, a knife. I'm sorry, ogeres. If it collects the knife inside, collects the flesh inside of it. It has 2 notches. Then it is psula. Good, thank you. It's psula. Misuchseches, if it doesn't collect all the meat inside of it, then it only has a single notch. So then lo yishchot balachatchila. You shouldn't shecht. V'im shachat, but if he did, shchita so kshera, the shchita is kosher. Now we have a third thing. Ola v'yorei besakin. A knife that doesn't have any notch. But there had been a notch, and then they had sharpened the knife to the point that the notch is now gone. But because they had sharpened the knife is no longer flat. The knife is now a little bit curved. Like this. You had a notch in the knife, so they kept sharpening it till it became this, till it became a curved knife. But it's a very sharp knife. So that is shochet balachatchila. That's good, and you can use it even in the first choice.
Yeah, that's it. That's the kosher la Pesach knife.
That's the kosher Pesach knife.
Yeah.
Good. The finish is, even though it's not flat, that's okay.
Even though it's not totally
like,
straight.
Rainbow
It's a
type.
bit to the
Yeah.
points. Still okay.
Amar le Rav Huna breder Rav Nachman Rav Ashi. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Nachman, said to Rav Ashi, Amrit lanish made Rava. You told us in the name of Rava, Misuch Seches, Pesula, a knife with a single notch, with a single, crack, only on one side. It is pasul. I've tiny we learned in a brisa. Misuch Seches, if the knife has single crack, shered is kosher. So lo kasher, it's not a contradiction. Kan sholach v'hevi. If he used the knife to go back and forth, then it's pasul. Kan sholach v'lo hevi. And here's where he used the knife and he didn't go back and forth. He only went on one direction. It'd be kosher. Rav Acha breder Rav Avaya Rav Ashi. Rav Acha, the son of Rav Avaya, said to Rav Ashi, Dam yolisasa. If the knife is like the old stalks, in other words, it's not straight, but it doesn't have nicks. What's the halacha? Amalei said to him, Man yoivlan mibsari v'achlinan. Who would give us some of the meat and we would eat it? In other words, it's 100% okay.
Like we said before.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda now said, how do you know in Torah that you need to give the knife to the rabbi, have the rabbi check the knife, and then you can use it? The answer is, this is what we see with the Navi Shmuel. That after Shaul told the people that they couldn't eat when they were fighting the Plishtim, they could only eat in the evening. So in the evening they were extremely hungry. And they started eating even things that were in kosher. So then they made a decree. They said, Hagishu elai ishor v'yishayehu shchatem b'zevach altem. Shaul, the king, said, everybody give me your animals and slaughter with this and you can eat. He gave them a knife, said slaughter with this. So slaughter with this, you see that the knife had to be checked by the Talmud Chacham, by Shaul. So of course you have to check a knife before you use it. Shita, it's obvious. Since when there is a knife that is puncturing the pipes instead of slitting the pipes, treifa, the animal becomes treif. So baya badika, of course you need to check the knife before you use it. So the Gemara says, l'chacham karmina. How do we know that we need a sage to check the knife? The Gemara says, but we really don't need a sage to check the knife. Rabbi Yochanan taught us earlier, they only said that you show the knife to the sage and let the sage check it and then use it just to give the sage honor. So Gemara says, you're right. It is midrabanan. It is a rabbinic enactment that you have a sage check. Kura, the pasuk that seems to say it's biblical, but we already learned from Shaul HaMelech, asmachta ba'am, was just a way to remember that law. All right, now how do you check the knives? In the land of Israel, they would check it in the sun. They would look at the sun. Yeah, we're going to see that in a second, the nails. But in Naharda, they would check it through putting it through water. And if the knife has a nick, so it's as you slide it through the water, it's going to make a little wave. Ripple. Good. Rav Sheshus Baruch Labareish Lishna. Rav Sheshus used to check it, Baruch, with the head of his tongue. At the top of his tongue, to make sure it was a sharp knife with no nicks. Rav Achabar Yaakov would check it with a hair. The Surah Amri in Surah they used to say, Bisra Achla, you're using it to eat meat, and therefore you have to check it on meat. Bisra Livdika, you have to check it on your finger, on meat. Rav Papa said, Tzricha B'dika Bisra, you need to check the knife on the flesh, on the skin, V'atufra, and on the nail. V'atre Gisni, and on both sides of the knife. Ravina said to Rav Ashi, Amar Rav Sama Braid Rav Mishar Shia Mishmach, Rav Sama the son of Rav Mishar, she says in your name, you say the name of Rava, Tzricha B'dika Bisra, you need to check it on flesh, on a finger, V'atufra, and on a fingernail, V'atlasa ruchta, and on all three sides. I said yes, you need to slide your finger across it, you need to use your fingernail. Atlasa ruchta lo amri, I didn't say all three sides. He could others say, Abisra v'atufra v'atlasa ruchti amri. I did say the finger, the fingernail, and all three sides. I didn't say that in the name of Rav, I said it on my own. Ravina and Rav Acha, the son of Rava. They were sitting in front of Rav Ashi. They brought a knife in front of Rav Ashi that Rav Ashi should check it. So Rav Ashi said to Rav Acha, the son of Rava, Bitka, why don't you check it? He checked it with his fingernail. And by sliding it across his finger, next to his finger. On all three sides. So Rav Ashi said to him, Yasher, beautiful. That's what Rav Kahana said, that's the way you check knives. Rav Yemer said, Atufra, you check it on the fingernail, Ve'abisra, and on the skin. Tzricha, that's what you need. Atlasa ruchta, the three sides, lo tzricha, that you don't actually need. Didn't Reb Zeir say in the name of Shmuel, Libein Sakin, that if you heated up a knife, and then when the knife is red hot, Shachat ba, you slaughtered with it, it's kosher. Shchitazik sher, kiduda kodem libuna, because first the knife slits the two sides, and that's going to impact the neck before the knife is going to burn anything. The kashan we asked, he could study, but there are sides. We said, but as you're slaughtering it, it opens up. So here too, as you're slaughtering it, it opens up. So all you need to do is to check the sharpness. You don't need to check the sides of the knife. Rabbi Chanan ibn Akash Omer, Ratzak Kadosh Baruch Hu l'Zakis Yisrael. If you fulfill the Torah mitzvah, Shneimar Adlecha V'Tzlamat Tzidko, Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.